A document from Virginia that, of course, he would be very familiar with, that said life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
And he would, and I'm going to, there's a whole group of people that would say, well, Jefferson didn't think property was a right. That's why he changed that. I'm going to dispute that. Because I think what he said was property and the pursuit of happiness are the same thing. What is the pursuit of happiness? It is our effort to acquire the things we want, whether it's material wealth, spiritual well-being, intellectual pursuits. They're all some effort, and you own the result. If you're a priest sworn to poverty and you are looking for God, it is your mind and your spiritual will that is being exerted. You own whatever the results of that are. Nobody else, and nobody can tell you any different. So,
even scholars today, if they come up with something, a program or whatever, it's their intellectual property, and they can secure that. If you steal it without giving credit or asking permission to use it, you're a thief.
Sure.
So, it's like not just physical property, it's intellectual and spiritual.
Right. I mean, everything requires some effort. So the whole idea, and I actually have some more, I don't think I have a group here that's going to be hard to prove this point to, but I've got some Aristotle here about exactly what we're talking about right now. And what right now, most conservative people object to Obama and the Democrats because they don't like wealth redistribution. And this is the main conflict here. So, not only did our founders talk about it, Locke talked about it, Aristotle said, and this should hit home, for sometimes the demagogues, in order to curry favor with the people, wrong the notables and so force them to combine, either they make a division of their property or diminish their incomes by the imposition of public services, and sometimes they bring accusations against the rich that they may have their wealth to confiscate. So
that's Aristotle?
That's Aristotle, 350 BC.
Sounds like read that in a ledger.
Plutarch, talking about Julius Caesar. There was the Roman Republic that the founders went back to look to for guidance. Not the Roman Empire, but the Republic that preceded it. And
would you read that last one more time to let it sink in?
The Aristotle?
Aristotle.
Or sometimes the demagogues, in order to curry favor with the people, wrong the notables and so force them to combine, either they make a division of their property or diminish their incomes by the imposition of public services, and sometimes they bring accusations against the rich that they may have their wealth to confiscate. So the idea of politicians promising me his money to give me something is as old as politics itself. This is Aristotle's Politics I'm reading about it. I would argue that the Roman Republic was brought down, and the empire was really a shadow of the great republic that preceded it. The Roman Empire was brought down for all of the same reasons. For the 100 years preceding the first emperor, they had a constant trend towards more and more unfettered democracy. And, democracy has become this great ideal now. But, yeah, to a certain extent, yeah. And the idea that you could vote yourself anything, if you could get enough people to elect the person that will promise you something, he will then return to you anything you want, no matter whose rights has to be violated in order to give it to you. And then, of course, somebody else joins your group, and now you're stronger, and the next time you can elect two people that will vote to give you whatever you want. So when Julius Caesar got into office, before he even started to try to make kind of attack the Senate, he was already hated. Why? Because he promised everybody else's money. And I'll read you something from Plutarch of Caesar. As soon as he entered upon his office, he proposed various measures for the allotment and redistribution of land, measures that would have come better from some revolutionary tribune of the people than from a Roman council. So, same problem, different century, decade. And of course, Caesar got in, and redistributed all kinds of property. Then he trotted off to Gaul to loot them as well. So, and another point I want to make is that the welfare idea and the warfare, they're really the same thing. I said in the book something like one just happens farther away than the other one, because what is it? It's the bringing force to bear against people to take away their property, whether in most cases being their material wealth, eventually their liberty, and even their lives.
And morally, Julius Caesar was every man's woman and every woman's man. That's what it was said about him.
Yeah. So, and
I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
He was so broke, by the way, when he went off to Gaul the first time. He was so far in debt because not only was he promising people, if you elect me, I'll get you his money, but he was spending all of his own, and he came from a pretty good family to try and curry favor to get himself elected. So, he was so broke that he had to have people come in and vouch for him to be able to leave the country to go to Gaul to prosecute the war, because his creditors wouldn't let him leave. They didn't trust him to come back. So these are old things. So what does that have to do with the United States? So first of all, our founders read these people widely. They were very, very schooled in the old republics. If you read John Adams, he's got this book this tall, and he goes through all of the old democracies in Greece, the republics in the Roman Republic, the republics in Italy and in Europe, and what was good and bad about all of them. Big, long treatise, brilliant thinker and writer. And he goes into all these issues, and the one thing that recurs throughout is that this is the problem. This is the problem, and this is the problem right now for us, whether we have Democrats or Republicans in office, is that they're getting into office saying, I will give you this, and I don't care who I have to trample over to give it to you, just get me in. And so we have to convince our people that these natural rights are what we have to protect. That's the purpose of government. To the extent that our Constitution protects them but is not being obeyed, it's a good thing. To the extent that our Constitution wasn't enough to protect them, and I don't think it's perfect, it's not good. We should go farther than the Constitution in terms of giving each individual more freedom and more protection. So, and if we're going to consider an amendment, it's to take away some power from government. Every amendment is always giving the government a little bit more.
That's true. So
we need to start taking them away. We need somebody, very fast typists in there repealing laws, 24 hours a day. So did our founders believe all this? And I'll just give you a few more. Their words are much better than mine. John Adams, probably the conservative, back in founding days. Jefferson was the liberal. Adams was the conservative. Those were the two great thinkers. And Adams said the thing about property. And he also said that the moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. If thou shalt not covet and thou shalt not steal were not commandments of heaven, they must be made inviolable precepts in every society before it can be civilized or made free. Thomas Paine. Every man wishes to pursue his occupation and to enjoy the fruits of his labors and the produce of his property in peace and safety with the least possible expense. When these things are accomplished, all the objects for which government ought to be established are answered. Back to Locke, the only purpose of government, protect our property, which includes our life and liberty. What about nobody can afford health care, nobody can afford shoes, the people have no bread, can the government provide it? And I want to be careful here to not imply that as human beings we shouldn't help people if that's the problem. But Thomas Jefferson, the great liberal, founder of our country, to take from one because it is thought that his own industry and that of his fathers has acquired too much in order to